Today we're in the Eldorado Wilderness, just south of Las Vegas, and our goal is to enter Lonesome Wash, a massive wash that cuts through the heart of the Eldorado Wilderness and goes all the way to the banks of the Colorado River. So let's take a look here at the surroundings. There you see the lights of Boulder City, Nevada, and those mountains behind are the River Mountains. A little further in this direction to the west are the Railroad Mountains. And then we have Black Mountain, the high point in the North McCullough Wilderness. And I'm pointing these out because all of these are reference points for our return trip. Here, the hills that you see in the foreground are the Nelson Hills. We're on Highway 165 toward Nelson. It's also called the Nelson Highway. There's the Beast. Now you're looking toward Nelson, a ghost town. We'll visit that at some point. And then back toward our direction toward the Lonesome Wash. And it's going to be right down in this area that we're going to be entering the Lonesome Wash. So let's get started. Before the sun rises over the hills that you see on the horizon and blinds our forward direction, just a note of where we're headed. You see that pointy hill on the right and a longer flat hill on the left. We're heading for this point between the two, and this is where we're going to find the entrance to Lonesome Wash. And by the way, this flat area, I call that the Lonesome Wash Overlook Mesa. Overlooks the upper end of Lonesome Wash. There's a Las Vegas Area Trails adventure on that mesa. Beautiful views. And then over here is the Peeper Benchmark. Great reference point in the Eldorado Wilderness. And we'll see other great reference points as we begin to descend into Lonesome Wash. This is the Pilot Mesa. And over here is the Pilot Cone. It's a volcanic cone. In fact, this whole area is volcanic. It's pretty amazing. It would rival the Yellowstone volcanic area when it was active. It's just a massive volcanic area. So we're going to see a lot of that as we descend into Lonesome Wash. We'll see the volcanic ridges and peaks on either side, and we'll point them out. And I believe over here is the high point in the Eldorado Wilderness, which is Lonesome Peak. So there you have it. Some of the major reference points that will be guiding our way, things that we'll see, and you can see the sun just beginning to rise over the Lonesome Wash Overlook Mesa. And then looking back, this is a beautiful time of day. That's why I want to do one more sweep. And here you see the hills that mark our return trip. And these are the Nelson Hills. They will disappear when we get far enough away, but there is another great reference point, which you can faintly see a little bit to the right and on the horizon. That's the South McCullough Wilderness and McCullough Mountain. So we'll be able to see that from quite a ways. And we just head a little bit to the left of that, and we're returning to our starting point. So there you have it. It is the first week in February. Temperature, around 55. Beautiful day today. Let's continue. One problem getting to this initial point where we descend into Lonesome Wash, which is right in this direction, is that you've got a few obstacles to encounter. Nothing technical, but you've got hills and canyons to your right. And you want to skirt the left side of those hills. Here's looking back down toward the railroad mountains. Just so that you can see a little reference. And you want to head for the right side of the mesa here. I call it Lonesome Wash Overlook Mesa. And once you get along the base, there is a little road that'll help you for a while. And so we need to continue to skirt some of these hills, get over to the base, and then take a right and just head up that road right toward this area, which is the entrance to Lonesome Wash. A problem is, all the way on the way, you're going to be blinded by the sunrise. And so it's hard to see what's ahead of you. You just have to look at basic shadows of features in order to keep on track. So anyway, yeah, this is where we're headed, and just to give you an idea where we came from and why we used the South McCalla Wilderness and McCalla Mountain as one of our main reference points. There it is. And notice how you can't see the Nelson Hills, but we know the Nelson Hills are to the left. And that will guide us back. Notice all the huge volcanic stones in the area. These all came from above. Actually, from below in the earth, but then shot up into the air and then fell to where they're resting now. So you can see the size of some of these is just huge. You definitely didn't want to be here when this was blowing and all these were raining down. Okay, onward. And here at the base of the Lonesome Wash overlooked mesa, we come across an approach road that'll help us for a bit, but then it's gonna disappear on us. And you can still see river mountains. And the Black Mountain of the North McCalla Wilderness. So on the way back, you know that you need to be heading over these hills. Huge volcanic bombs from that eruption scattered all around. Okay, let's continue on up this road for a while. Make our way toward the upper entrance to Lonesome Wash. Well, that was a very short period of time on this little road. And now, yeah, there's the Lonesome Wash overlook mesa, and here's the road angling off in this direction. But we need to be right up in this little fold between the two hills. And that's where we're going to find the upper entrance to Lonesome Wash. There's some bighorn sheep up on this hill. They saw me way before I saw them. There's the Lonesome Wash overlook mesa. Here's the direction we've come from. Here's the other hill that we looked at, and when I mentioned the fold between the two hills, it's the fold between the overlook mesa, one of the slopes that comes down, and this next hill. And up to now, we've been on relative flat land. There have been some shallow ridges and canyons, nothing really dramatic, but take a look ahead. Now we're at the edge of the Lonesome Wash, upper Lonesome Wash. So we're gonna find our way down this gully, or maybe we'll go over this ridge and see what the next gully looks like, which might be easier, we don't know. But first I'm going to take a look down this gully, see what it looks like, And if it looks decent, just head down this gully. There you see one of the first peaks is peak 3520. And here's Lonesome Peak. And again, the beginning of the beautiful Lonesome Wash. Let's begin to descend. I've been descending this gully. It's the initial gully we looked at. Decided to go with this one rather than the neighboring gully, even though on the topo map, the neighboring gully looks a little bit more gradual, but this is not bad. As you can see, just winding around, watching every step on this steep slope, making sure that every foot placement is solid instead of some rock that's going to start rolling. And at the top of the gully, before I began to descend, I tightened my shoelaces. So all of that is good practices to descend a terrain like this. But as you can see, yeah, it goes around and continues downward. Lots of boulders in the beginning that fall from the hills above on the left. Once you get down to the base of peak 3520, things are going to level off quite a bit. And then it's just going to be a quick distance as far as we can go before we run out of time. I've got a turnaround time set, which is important for terrain like this. This is in the beginning of February, which is important. You don't want to do this in the summer. Gets up to 120 degrees in the summer here. But this is very nice. Okay, onward. Okay, now we're lower. I have descended from that point above. I angled a little bit on this side. These slopes were a little bit, I guess, a little bit more gradual, not much. And now I'm in a place that doesn't have a whole lot of stability. That's why things may be shaking a little bit. But now here we are, down in the next section. The next challenge is all these boulders that have fallen from above and just navigating the boulders, finding the best route between them, but no more steep slopes. We're basically in the wash, and there's the base where the boulders end, right at the base of peak 3520. So definitely things are going well, and we've made it this far. We've encountered, the first challenge was going into the sun and finding the entrance of the upper wash while being blinded by the sun. Second challenge was descending this steep initial slope. Just very careful, no issues really, but just watch every step and have some good footwear. I have Vibram on the bottom of my boots, and I have boots that help keep me stable. So the next challenge is navigating, weaving around these boulders here and getting to the base of peak 3520. So here we go. I just have to point this special friendly bush out. you're going to encounter a lot of these in this area. For lack of a better name, I call it the assassin bush, and I'm going to tell you why. And there you can see, yeah, look at those little barbs. And what this bush does is, notice how it's got stringy branches, thin stringy branches, and they're all barbed. So what this bush does is it will grab you with one of these stringy branches, and then they'll wrap around you, and the barbs will just totally encircle you. It's like a lasso, and they'll tear through clothing, they'll rip your skin. Sometimes there's no way around them. Look at this. Here's one here. Here's one over here, and I had to go between them. And even going between them, yes, the little barbed branches. So, yeah, you're going to encounter some assassin bushes, and they're going to be crossing the path you need to continue forward. And so just be prepared. Probably good to wear long pants and long sleeve shirts. So the assassin bush. And by the way, a lot of these nicer bushes, no barbs, they're creosote bushes. So you can rub against these without endangering your life. And then as you navigate these boulders, just watch out for areas that, like, see, this boulder is precariously placed, and don't put your full weight on anything like that, and try to circle above it rather than below it, and that will decrease your chances of having a horrible accident. Boulders all around. This is the part I've been descending and weaving between the right and the left wherever I find a path that works. Sometimes the middle works, but you're basically weaving through this boulder garden and continuing toward peak 3520. So let's continue on down. And by the way, here is one of the potential escape routes from this wash. This leads up toward the Lonesome Wash Overlook Mesa. And there are a number of escape routes, which is why I have more confidence descending into the wash and knowing that I can get out. You can see the slopes along the right side are more gradual, and so there are many ways in and out of this wash. I'm just trying to work out the most streamlined way so I've got more time to descend further down the wash before my turnaround point. Continuing to weave my way down the boulder area, came up through this channel here. But notice there are other escape routes. There's a channel that'll get you up to the top, and then you can navigate your way back to Highway 165. This is the base of Peak Lonesome Wash Overlook Mesa. And here ahead, you can see things beginning to level off. They're actually not going to level off till we reach the base of this peak, which I said was 3520. Well, I was wrong. It's 3510. And then the next peak over is 3320. I get them mixed up when I just have numbers to go by. That's why I name so many things. Anyway, yeah, here we go. Down this wash, get to the base of 3510. And things should become a lot smoother. The wash will be wider, flatter, sandy bottom. It'll be much faster going than this little boulder garden I have been in. And by the way, here is a much better view of the stretch that I have descended from at the upper end of the wash, somewhere on these ridges, but you can see how it winds around. It's been slow going. This is actually a lighter boulder section than what I've been in earlier, so it definitely has a number of obstacles that'll slow you down, and you need your time to make the most progress continuing downward in the wash. And I'm about 2 hours from my turnaround time, so we'll get some good distance once we hit the flat area of the wash. Well, there's the entrance to the boulder garden that we have descended. Lots of boulders and obstacles, nothing major, but just slows you down. And yay, we are in the wide open area below the boulder garden, so we're going to make some better time. But let's just take a moment to look at the surroundings. Here you have peak 3510, 3320 you cannot see, it's behind. Here is the southeastern edge of the Lonesome Wash Overlook Mesa. And if you could ascend maybe around the corner, around the right side, there would be an ascent. We'll take a look. But if you could ascend that, then that would be a way back without hitting the boulder garden. And then over in this direction, those are slopes that you ascend those slopes and you could get to a higher elevation that would take you back to Highway 165, but you'd be going across a whole lot of canyons and ridges. Over here is North Lonesome Peak. Lonesome Peak is behind it, makes a large ridge between the two peaks. There's a saddle. There's a western canyon to the right, an eastern canyon to the left, and we'll be looking at those and looking at a way around Lonesome Peak, around the base of Lonesome Peak. I came down the western canyon one time and hit this cylindrical shaft that just went straight down, blocked progress. I call it Satan's shaft. You fall down that thing, you're only getting out with a rope assist. Okay, and so let's continue on down. And we are in an area that you may not have seen filmed before because it is so isolated, far away from any access. So yeah, take it in. This is Lonesome Wash. We've just descended beyond the upper end of the wash. Now we're in the wider area that I would call mid Lonesome Wash. Not too long from now, we'll be looking up at Mojave Overlook. And if you look on LasVegasAreaTrails.com at the Mojave Overlook Loop, we ascended to the summit of the Lonesome Wash Overlook Mesa, crossed the mesa, and then headed over to descend to Mojave Overlook. And the great thing about that is we saw everything that we've been experiencing today from above, get a larger view how the wash is laid out. But it is an incredibly beautiful wash with lots of peaks surrounding and total solitude. Nobody comes here. At least anyone that I know of. Okay, so here you have it. Now, let's see how far we can get down the wash before our turnaround point, which is just a little less than 2 hours. And by the way, as the crow flies, it's only about 4.5 miles in a straight line to the Colorado River. I imagine that it could be as much as twice that distance, weaving around through the wash as we would need to. So we'll see how far we can get. A little further down the wash now. Get a good look at the next stretch. And by the way, at the furthest extent that you can see, a left turn, and you would possibly be able to ascend to Mojave Overlook. And there's the southeast end of the Lonesome Wash Overlook Mesa. Big pyramid structure. There's looking up the wash, the way we came. This direction is Lonesome Peak. You can't see it from here. And here in the sun is Peak 3510. And you can see all these on the map on LasVegasAreaTrails.com. Now we're around the next corner looking down the wash. And we'll see if we can identify the Mojave Overlook. It's going to be somewhere in this area before you hit, I think this is Forlorn Hope Peak there, and the overlook would be right up in here. We'll see if we can find it. That may be our exit out today. But yeah, wide open wash. Here's Peak 3310, no, 3320, I think. Oh boy. And here's Peak 3510, I'm sure about that. Here's looking up the wash. This is the southeastern edge of the Lonesome Wash Overlook Mesa. We stood on that very tip during the adventure where we went to the Mojave Overlook. And then back around to the direction where I think we would find the Mojave Overlook, right up in there. But we'll see when we get around this corner. Maybe it's closer than that. We don't know. But I don't think it's further than this high point. continuing down this very isolated, beautiful Lonesome Wash in the heart of the Eldorado Wilderness. Okay, here's another look where we are. Come around another corner, and 4 miles straight down, maybe 5 miles, would lead us to the Colorado River. But then looking up in this direction, over this ridge here is the Mojave Overlook. And that may be our exit. Then looking up toward the Lonesome Wash Overlook Mesa. Then up the Lonesome Wash. And you see 2 peaks. You see the base of the ridge of peak 3510, and then here you see 3520. And then other landmarks. There would be Forlorn Hope Peak. We'll get a better look at that in a bit, which would make this Forlorn Lonesome Peak. Or maybe that's the tip of it that you see right there. We know the Peeper benchmark is also in that direction beyond the Mojave Overlook. Let's continue down. Yeah, I think I'm going to come back, make my exit up through this direction, and visit the Mojave Overlook area again, and then back to Highway 165. That'll give me a little more time to get down further into this wash. Here we are a little further down, and everything's forlorn here. Here's Forlorn Lonesome Peak, I believe. And this would be Forlorn Hope Peak. Looking down the wash further, we're going to get a little further than we are right now. Back to peak 3320. Up the wash toward Lonesome Wash Overlook Mesa. But take a look at this. This is perhaps the largest cactus forest. I think it's cholla cacti, but the largest forest of its kind that I've ever seen. Beautiful lighting. Look at them glowing in the sun. Now I know this is a cholla cactus. What these others are, I am not sure. But just look at them. Just amazing. I'm going to zoom in and do a closer look at these amazing cacti. Never seen anything like this. And the cactus forest just goes on forever. Perhaps this is the gold of the Eldorado Wilderness. Hidden cactus forest in the heart of the wilderness. And looking back up the canyon the way we came, then around, our exit out of Lonesome Wash may be right up in this area. That may be the Mojave Overlook. If it's not, it's close enough that we'll be looking down on it when we reach that point. But before we go there, let's descend a little further down this beautiful wash. I see more cactus forests ahead. We're about 4 miles from the Colorado River. Maybe with all the curves of this wash, it could be as much as 6 miles. But yeah, we're not going to be able to make it all the way down to the Colorado and back by dark. So I'm getting close to the turnaround point. And here you see these hills in the distance are actually in Arizona. There's the Malpais Flat Top Mesa, and then surrounding hills across the Colorado. So we are very, very close. And let's just take a quick look around. There's the Lonesome Wash Overlook Mesa overlooking the upper end of Lonesome Wash. We're about 2/3 of the way down now. Peak 3320. A lot of these beautiful cacti all around. That's quite the forest. I didn't know such a place existed. Back around, looking down the Lonesome Wash toward the Colorado River. And looking across the Colorado to the mesa on the opposite side. We'll go just a little bit further, then we've got to turn around. Here we are at the furthest extent down Lonesome Wash toward the Colorado River. We're only about 4 miles away from the Colorado, and it would be right through this opening, and those brown hills you see in the distance are in Arizona. So that's across the Colorado River. And then the green hills, Nevada, on this side of the Colorado. So just a quick look around. So you just see the terrain where we are now. North side of the wash. Looking up the wash now. Some cool formations here. This is the south side of the wash. And back to looking down the wash east toward Arizona on the opposite side of the Colorado River. Just an amazing adventure through the heart of the Eldorado Wilderness. Lonesome Wash. And perhaps I'll come to Mojave Overlook and come down from there and get the lower portion of the wash. We've made it 2/3 down, all the way back from Highway 165. Now we're heading back. This is our turnaround point. We want to be back before dark. And so what I'm going to do is go up through Mojave Overlook and then around and back to Highway 165 that way. See if it's a shorter route, and if it is, then I'll come that way next time and see if we can get down to the Colorado River. And the Mojave Overlook should be up that gully, heading to the right before the base of the Lonesome Wash Overlook Mesa. So let's see if we can find it. Okay, here's where I left the wash. Now heading toward Mojave Overlook, which is in this direction. And there in the distance is Peeper Benchmark. We want to skirt the left base of Peeper Benchmark, where we will hit Road F and then circle around back to Highway 165. And to just give you an idea of our surroundings here. There is the Lonesome Wash Overlook Mesa. And here we're heading toward Peeper Benchmark and Road F at the Mojave Overlook. Being very careful not to brush against anything in this area. And I just noticed some of these are in bloom. First week in February. Well, Maybe it's a cactus bloom, not sure. It looks like little pieces that fell off onto the ground below. And I'm thinking maybe that's how this cactus propagates. The ends fall off and then start new plants. And here's our route up to Mojave Overlook and Road F. And then just to complete the picture, here is the cactus skeleton. I've been ascending this wash. It's the runoff wash to Mojave Overlook. So it's below the overlook. And I believe the overlook is going to be right up in this area. And it looks like wide open, easy ascent. There is Peeper Benchmark. So everything's looking good. We'll be up at the overlook and Road F very soon. But yeah, another wash. The runoff below Mojave Overlook. We've been ascending this runoff wash from the Mojave Overlook, which is behind me and above. And there, looking down toward Lonesome Wash below, where we begin ascending. And here's Forlorn Hope Peak. And there's Peeper Benchmark. So what we want to do is continue on up and find that road that is going to take us to Peeper Benchmark and then around the right side of this slope and back toward Highway 165. So let's see how all that comes together. I've been continuing up this gully, and now, yeah, this area up here looks pretty familiar. I'm heading up this slope, and I think when I reach the summit of the slope, we'll be on Mojave Overlook and be looking down on Road F. Let's see if that all bears out. Okay, here we are just on the other side of Mojave Overlook. If I were on top of this little high point, we'd be able to see a better view than the Mojave Overlook. But go to the Mojave Overlook page on Las Vegas Area Trails and you'll see the view from there. What I want to do today is something a little bit different. I want to head down this wash. You can see Boulder City in the distance. the Railroad Mountains. And let's just head down in this direction, wind our way around, and then circle to the left when we find a good opening. We'll circle to the left toward Highway 165 and our end point. So we took this little track below, this gully, to the Mojave Overlook in a previous adventure. Instead, we're going in this direction and just see what the terrain looks like down there. And then remember that steep rock hill, volcanic hill that we descended during the Mojave Overlook Loop. There it is. But we never went down this gully. I want to see what's down there, what the world looks like. And it's on the way back. So here we go. And by the way, there is officially Forlorn Hope Peak. And then you can see the upper tip of Peeper Benchmark. So give you an idea where we are. Okay, heading down this gully. Let's see where it takes us. I last checked in from this slope, and just on the other side of that high point is the Mojave Overlook. I've traversed along the edge of the mountains here. There's Peeper Benchmark. Now we can see Pilot Cone. Boulder City, River Mountains in the background. And so now I circle around the edge of this ridge, and then we should be able to see the southern McCullough Range and McCullough Mountain. And that's our guide back to Highway 165. And now we see the River Mountains. Well, the River Mountains are over in this direction. Yes, behind Boulder City. And over in this direction, the Railroad Mountains. And then Black Mountain in the North McCullough Wilderness. And our target is in this direction. So it's just a matter of angling around and over these intervening ridges without losing too much altitude. So we'll see how that works out. But we're heading in this direction. I believe those are the Nelson Hills. Not totally sure. We'll know when we get on top of the next ridge. And over in this direction, the Lonesome Wash Overlook Mesa. And we could have ascended all the way up, but that would be a little counterproductive. We came around the edge of this ridge to where we are now. There's the Peeper Benchmark. Pilot Mesa. and Pilot Cone. So now, with those reference points in mind, we know we need to head across the ridges right about here and to the Nelson Hills beyond. There's our reference point, peeper benchmark. Here are the ridges we have been traversing from somewhere over this area to our right is the summit of the Lonesome Wash Overlook Mesa. And now the name of the game is to circle around without losing altitude, get to this point, and then I think it's going to be a descent down to the flatland that will lead back to Highway 165. Don't know, there could be another ridge in the way. You never know. And down in this direction, the Railroad Mountains on the left, the River Mountains, and Boulder City on the right. Okay, onward. We've just come over these ridges from this point, Forlorn Hope Peak area and Mojave Overlook to the right of that rocky area. Peeper benchmark. And now one more ridge to cross. You can see very faintly McCullough Hill or McCullough Mountain in the South McCullough Wilderness. And then over in this direction, we're looking at the Nelson Hills, and the beast is parked on Highway 165 at the base of those hills, or this side of those hills. So now we cross this deep gully over the next ridge and then descend to the final flat run back to Highway 165. And here we are, descend this ridge and then the final straight mile or two, probably two, to this peak. That's our marker. So we'll find our way down this volcanic ridge. Shouldn't be too hard. And then straight across. Better lighting looking back in this direction now, looking to the east. And there is the Lonesome Wash Overlook Mesa. There's the point where I descended into Lonesome Wash, right at the left side of that mesa. And then looking around, yeah, we were blinded by the sun in the morning. Here we have Pilot Mesa. Pilot Cone in this volcanic region. Muddy Mountains. Boulder City. And behind it, the River Mountains. railroad mountains, and then everything starts to get dark because we got the sun. We're heading toward the sun again. The only problem with this route is that you spend a lot of time heading toward the sun. But we made it to within 4 miles of the Colorado River in that spectacular Lonesome Wash. It's just amazing. Right through the heart of the Eldorado Wilderness. And now heading back to Highway 165, right in the center. And here we are back at the beast. What an awesome experience. Lonesome Wash. As you've probably never seen it before.